You're listening to the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. It's fast, fun, free, daily deep dive Bible, and right now we're working on the book of Nehemiah. If you're new, welcome. You can jump in right here, or you can always go back and start at the beginning of any season. The whole podcast is available in an easy-to-use format at thetmbh.com.
You ever have those long conversations with your friends where you start talking about all the problems in the world? And phase one in these conversations is always where you figure out what the problems are. And you break them down, and it's enjoyable. It's fun to workshop what all the issues are and how they all fit together. But then you get to phase two of the conversation. You start workshopping that. Maybe a spouse or friend walks in while y'all are talking. They're like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And what do you always say when you get to this phase of conversation? You say, yeah, we're just in here solving the world's problems. And everybody laughs. But deep down, it's really fun to try to solve the world's problems. I mean, it feels like you're being productive. So they leave and you wave goodbye. And you're like, all right, back to solving the world's problems. And what inevitably happens in this phase of the conversation is that obvious solutions, obvious moral solutions to the world's problems crop up in front of you. And it's very clear. This is what you got to do. We got the wrong people here doing this. We need people of character there doing that. We got to make these bold changes. We got to rip some stuff out by the root. We got to get things straightened out. It'll be better. It'll be more liberty and justice for all if we were to make these changes. But then you reach phase three of this type of a conversation, which is where with resignation, you all admit, yeah, it's not going to happen. Why isn't it going to happen? Well, because all of the obvious solutions would require self-sacrificing, principled, moral and political courage on the part of the leaders who would have to do it. And we don't really have those kind of leaders. This isn't an age of great principle right now. It's an age where I think people are justifiably a little bit burned and a little bit cynical about the likelihood of people laying down their power and their authority as leaders to do the things that are right and principled at their own expense. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes. But in Nehemiah, it's actually happening. The conversations that the returning exiles had no doubt been having that are just like the ones you and I still have today, where they look at the problems, big picture, more local picture, and they're like, this is what it would take. This is how we got to fix the things. The obvious solutions are actually being carried out by an actual leader with actual principles and actual moral and political courage, and that is Nehemiah. He knows dang well what the problem is, and the problem is that there is corruption running rife, opportunistic corruption that is woven into this newly reformed city government and city culture of Jerusalem, and he's not going to stand for it. He's going to actually do the things that are required to make it better. Nehemiah 7:1, after the wall had been rebuilt and I had set the doors in place, the gatekeepers and the singers and the Levites were appointed. Sounds like nothing, but as we've discussed the last few days, that was a huge, bold move that is a gigantic political clout swing and is hugely principled, because every one of those gatekeepers, singers, and Levites who used to have that job but now don't with this new appointment, and all of the people who wanted those jobs but did not get appointed by Nehemiah, they're mad. And they have very important relatives and business associates who are also now mad. And they are probably going to withdraw their support from Nehemiah because you didn't give the singer job to my little Timmy, and he is precious, and now I'm angry at you. This is a move that required a ton of clout. But if you want to fix the kind of problems that are endemic to this situation in Jerusalem and Nehemiah, you can't just replace gatekeepers and singers and Levites. You're going to have to take even bigger, bolder swings and appoint leaders who get it and are principled. That's what happens next. Nehemiah 7:2. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani. Okay, well, we've heard that name before. That's the name that always makes me think of that Black Crowes song. I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hanani. Okay, Hanani is back here. He gets mentioned in verse 2 of the whole book. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanani, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, so this is Hanani talking now, Those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been burned with fire. So look, we're learning something about Hanani here based on what he chose to report. What we learn in Nehemiah 1 when we first meet this character is that he gets it. He sees the problem for what it is. He knows that it's a gate problem, an enemy problem, but also a heart of the people problem. The people are in distress. They are a mess. Well, who else have we met in the entire book of Nehemiah who would be a better candidate to take leadership and lead the right way, to lead out of the era of chaos and compromised, unprincipled leadership and into the post-rebuild the walls era that Nehemiah is attempting to institute and usher in? Hanani, he's the perfect guy. There is no other candidate. So Hanani gets appointed to oversee Jerusalem along with Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than most men do. Look at that. I mean, you can assume that the dude is competent, but his competency, based on the way Nehemiah is describing him here, flows out of the integrity. As I'm recording this, the NFL draft just occurred. That's the American football draft where the pro teams choose from the amateur ranks new players to fill out their rosters. And all the different coaches and managers of these different professional American football teams, you know, they'll jump in front of the microphone and say what they liked about these players. And there are some franchises that really want talent above all, and they give lip service to character, but talent is the chief thing. There are other franchises where they talk about character a lot. They got football character and they got real life community human character as well. And that factored heavily into why we drafted, why we picked so-and-so or so-and-so. And it used to be that integrity was a really big deal in how we as voters in our country drafted our leaders. We cared very much about whether or not they told the truth on little things. That was a big deal. Lying didn't work. Lying for their own benefit didn't work. We did not like that. We didn't accept it. We used to reject dishonest Orwellian doublespeak. We used to care about what people did with their lives, how they conducted their business, things like that. We do not care about that anymore. We draft now as voters overwhelmingly on power. Do you think my thing and will you advance my thing is what voters care about. It's an age of not principle that we're living in right now. Is that offensive? I don't know. I think I'm okay with just being offensive on this one because it is an age of not principle and we don't vote for candidates who have integrity anymore. We don't even get candidates with integrity on the ballot. You don't even really get that as an option anymore. If you disagree with me and you think we've got tons of candidates with all kinds of integrity, then I don't know, this analogy might break down and not make sense. If you think maybe I kind of have a point here, then you'll be able to go with me to this next analogy, which is how great would it feel if a man or woman of great integrity and trustworthiness were to come on the scene politically and you had the option to vote for someone who you morally admired, who you knew just doesn't do lies, even if it helps them, even if maybe the lie is for my own good, they just don't lie. If they say a thing, the thing is true. If they say a thing isn't that way, the thing is false. They don't do dishonesty. They don't play games. They don't cook the books and change what they believe depending on who they're talking to. What if an integrity candidate came along and just blew our minds with the fact that legitimately you can trust them based on principle because they don't lie and integrity is important to them? I think for a lot of us, that would be a drink of cool water in the desert. And I think for a lot of us, we would line up to vote for something like that. Even if we didn't have across-the-board agreement politically, just the opportunity to vote for integrity would be an amazing thing. Well, in Nehemiah chapter 7, you're coming off 100 years, maybe 50 years at least, of an age of not principle and of a lot of dishonesty. And Nehemiah is cleaning house. And we said yesterday that one of the big challenges when you do a big political purge, not the kind where you kill people, but the kind where you replace leaders to try to set a new culture, one of the big challenges is not so much how do you get rid of the people who aren't any good, it's who do you replace them with? And Nehemiah is clearly drafting for integrity. Oh my goodness. That was like 9 levels of mixed metaphor. Think about what I just did. Drafting, coaching, voting, There are a couple more in there as well. I don't know. I think you all get what I'm driving at. Nehemiah believes that if he entrusts this place to people who fear God and have integrity and are principled, that is going to be one of the best ways to change the fate of these people, to rebuild the people, to rebuild the cultural and ethical moral expectations of this community, and to help them to be set apart as a unique people called to be a nation of priests before God. And one of the things that I think is amazing is, unlike so many who style themselves throughout history as revolutionaries or people who shake things up, Nehemiah is not killing people. He's so crafty, he doesn't have to. He's outmaneuvering them. And what is his strong foundation that allows him to do it? Integrity, his record, how he handles his business. He doesn't have to cover up a lot of lies or remember all of the lies that he said. He conducts himself like a man who fears God more than most men do. And the result is he has moral authority to speak into these situations. And that's something that we haven't seen for a while. That's a very unique thing in history to have a leader like that. But people will follow a man like that. People will follow a woman like that. And in this case, Nehemiah is that guy, and he's trying to surround himself with other people who are that guy. And it's just one more point where I really admire his leadership and how he's coming at all of this stuff. Okay, I have an announcement. Jeffrey Foote, my buddy who does the music here and who edits things and who is my dear friend, he is hosting a concert by a progressive rock legend, a guy who's been at it since the early 1980s named Neil Morse. If you don't know who Neil Morse is, that's okay. If you do, you know how big a deal it is to have Neil Morse show up at your church and put on a concert and also participate and lead the worship services. So that's happening at Jeff's church, which is Grace Church in Longmont, Colorado. That's going to be on Saturday, May 18th at 7:30 p.m. There's more details at gracelongmont.org. And then Neil Morris is also going to help out with the worship services on Sunday morning, the 19th. Those happen at 9 and 10:30. We've got a big family event going on in Colorado that weekend. It hasn't fully taken shape yet, but this is something I would really like to attend. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to be there and be around for that concert on that Saturday night. And if not, maybe hopefully I can be there for church on Sunday morning. So there's at least a chance that I might even see you there. But if you're in the area at all, this would be an awesome thing to put on your calendar and consider showing up for. Again, that's a Neil Morse show, Saturday night, May 18th, hosted by Jeff Foote at Grace Church in Longmont, Colorado. And of course, I'll have Jeff put a link down below to all of that. Okay, I think that's plenty for now. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.